The ambassador's neck snapped under the plasma noose, his body jerking once before the holographic feed cut to static. In the dim control room of the UNS Vanguard, Captain Elena Reyes watched the screen flicker out, her fists clenched so tight the knuckles whitened. The Galactic Council's chamber had been a farce of crystal spires and alien delegates, all smug in their unity. But now their verdict hung in the void like a death sentence for more than just one man. Ambassador Hale had argued for hours, his voice steady as he laid out Earth's grievances over the mining rights on Epsilon Eridani, rights the Vixari cartel had seized with the Council's tacit approval. Execution for treason, the High Arbiter had intoned, a squid-like Thulari with tentacles coiling in satisfaction. Treason, for defending human lives. Elena slammed her palm on the console, the thud echoing off the bulkheads. Her XO, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, no relation to the ambassador but the coincidence had always irked him, spun from his station, eyes wide behind his visor. Captain, that was live. The whole fleet saw it. What the hell do we do now? She didn't answer immediately, her mind racing through protocols drilled into her since the academy. The Vanguard was a light cruiser, one of 12 in the Sol Defense Fleet, patrolling the fringes where human colonies butted against the galaxy's sprawl. They weren't armed for war, not yet. But Hale's death wasn't just a loss. It was a spark in a powder keg. Earth had whispered threats for years ever since the Council sidelined humanity as provocative upstarts. Now, with the ambassador's blood on their claws, those whispers would roar. "Comms," Elena barked, her voice cutting the tension like a laser. "Patch me through to Sol Command. Priority Alpha, and Marcus, get the engines hot. We're not sitting here like targets." The lieutenant nodded, fingers flying over his panel as the ship's hum deepened. Reactors spooling up. Alarms began to chime softly. Proximity alerts from the Council's patrol drones circling the neutral station. Elena's jaw set. She'd seen enough alien posturing in her 20 years of service. Brave to a fault, that's what her eval said, but caution had its place. Right now, though, caution meant watching her people get picked off one by one. The comms crackled open, Admiral Voss's face materializing in grainy holospace. His lined features tightened as he took in her expression. "Reyes, report." "I saw the feed." "They're executing our people for asking questions, sir," she interrupted, heat rising in her chest. "Hale's gone. If we don't respond, every colony from Mars to the Belt will be next." Voss leaned forward, the stars of his command ship blurring behind him. "The Council's fleet outnumbers us 10-1. We push back, it's war." Elena's gaze flicked to the viewport, where the neutral station loomed, a glittering orb of diplomacy turned execution block. War. The word tasted like iron. But Hale's final words echoed in her mind. "Earth doesn't kneel," she straightened. "Then we make them remember why." On the bridge, Marcus shot her a sidelong glance, his usual wit subdued into grim resolve. The crew, 20 souls handpicked for grit, waited, breath held. Outside, the drones closed in, their sensors probing like hungry eyes. Elena's hand hovered over the weapons lock. One order and the galaxy would burn. But first they had to survive the night. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the holographic display flickered to life. The grainy feed from the Galactic Council's chamber, replaying the moment in brutal clarity. Ambassador Hale's face twisted in defiance even as the energy beam pierced his chest, burned into her retinas. She slammed her fist on the console, the metallic thud echoing through the bridge of the UNS Vanguard. "Replay it from the declaration," she ordered, her voice steady but laced with the grit of someone who'd lost too many to alien politics. Lieutenant Marcus Reed, her ever-cautious XO, hesitated at the auxiliary station, his fingers hovering over the controls. He was the type who measured every risk, the one who kept the ship from flying apart during ion storms. "Captain, we've seen it 10 times already. Intel confirms it's authentic, no deepfakes. But broadcasting this fleet-wide, it might ignite the crew." "Exactly," Elena snapped, her dark eyes locking onto his. She was brave to a fault, the kind who charged into asteroid fields when evacuation was the smart play. But today that fire felt like a forge heating up. They need to see what the Council did. Hale wasn't just a diplomat. He was one of us, executed like a criminal for pushing back on their resource grabs. The hologram stabilized. the alien counselor's voice droning in translated galactic standard. The human ambassador is hereby sentenced for incitement against the Unity. Then the flash, Hale crumpling, his blood red and human, splattering the polished floor. The bridge crew fell silent, a mix of engineers and tacticians staring at the display. Petty Officer Lena Kowalski, the witty sharpshooter from engineering, broke the tension first. Bastards think they can just zap our guy and we'll roll over? I've got half a mind to jury-rig the railguns with that new plasma coil we salvaged. Her Polish accent thickened under stress, but her grin was all challenge, masking the tremor in her hands. Elena stood pacing the narrow deck, her boots clanging softly. The Vanguard hummed around them, a sleek human vessel dwarfed by the galactic armada outside the Sol system's perimeter. But she felt the weight of Earth's gaze even from light years away. The challenge wasn't just the Council's decree. It was the ripple effect. Hale's death severed the fragile trade pacts, leaving human colonies starved for dilithium and facing pirate raids emboldened by the power vacuum. One wrong move, and the fleet could spark a war Earth wasn't ready for. Or worse, force a surrender that gutted their independence. Options, Elena said, turning to Marcus. He pulled up schematics, projecting a star map dotted with Council outposts. We pull back to Mars orbit, fortify, wait for UN orders, or we shadow their envoy ships, gather proof of their next moves. His voice was measured, eyes flicking to the crew for support. But Lena leaned forward, jabbing at a note on the map. Or we hit 'em where it hurts. That listening post in the belt, they're eavesdropping on our comms. Knock it out quietly, send a message without full war. The plan formed in Elena's mind like a targeting solution locking on. Clever, not suicidal. But as alarms blared, a proximity alert from an incoming Council probe, she knew the first test was here. Read evasive maneuvers. Kowalski prepped the disruptor pulse. We're not waiting for orders. We're making them. The ship lurched, stars streaking past viewports, and in that moment the crew's resolve hardened. A human spark against the galactic chill. Yet Elena couldn't shake the image of Hale's eyes, wide in that final instant, whispering a warning of costs yet to come. Elena Voss gripped the console as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, the faint glow of shattered hulls flickering past the viewport like dying stars. Shields at 80%, she barked, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. The Xipheron outpost loomed ahead, a spindly station orbiting a gas giant, its lights pulsing in oblivious rhythm. This was it. The first target on the list, a mid-level council aide who'd signed off on the ambassador's execution without a second thought. Marcus Hale, strapped into the co-pilot seat, tapped furiously at his datapad, his fingers a blur. I've looped their security feeds. They think we're a routine supply run from the outer rim, but if they scan us deeper... He trailed off, his usual wit sharpened by the stakes. The aide inside Vexar 9 wasn't just any bureaucrat. He'd been the one to relay the Council's final verdict to Earth's delegation. His holographic transmission still burned into Elena's memory. Kira Singh, in the rear, checked her rifle's charge for the third time. This isn't a raid, Captain. It's an execution. One shot, clean, and we're ghosts. Her caution had saved them during the sims back on the Vanguard, but now it hung in the air like a warning. The order from Earth was clear. No negotiations, no prisoners. Retaliate in kind. Dismantle the network that greenlit the murder. But the cost? One wrong move, and the galaxy's fragile alliances shattered into war. The shuttle docked with a metallic thud, clamps locking into place. Elena stood first, her boots echoing on the grated floor. Hale, you stay here and monitor. Sing. With me. They moved like shadows through the umbilical corridor, the alien station's hum vibrating underfoot. Vexar 9's quarters were 2 levels down, per the hacked schematics, a private suite for distinguished service. Alarms didn't blare until they were inside. Vexar 9 spun from his console, his multifaceted eyes widening in the dim light. Human? What is the meaning? His words cut off as Singh's suppressed shot punched through his chest plate, a precise bloom of blue ichor staining the wall. He slumped, tentacles twitching once before stilling. Elena didn't flinch. Confirmed. Target down. But as they turned to leave, the station's lights flickered red. Hale's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, they've got backups. Drones inbound 305. We tripped a silent protocol. The corridor erupted in laser fire, bolts scorching the air. Elena dove behind a bulkhead, returning fire with her sidearm. Singh grunted, a graze searing her arm, but she kept shooting, dropping the lead drone in a shower of sparks. "Elevators compromised," she shouted. "Stairs now." They bolted downward, the station's AI voice droning evacuation protocols in a dozen languages. Elena's mind raced. This wasn't just an execution. It was a spark. Vexar 9's death would ripple out, alerting the Council's fringes. But hesitation wasn't an option. Earth's grit demanded they press on, even as the first real consequence clawed at their heels. The knowledge that their faces, their ship, were now etched into the galaxy's most wanted feeds. Hale's shuttle engines roared to life as they burst into the docking bay, drones swarming like angry wasps. "Strap in," he yelled, peeling away from the clamps just as a missile streaked past. The outpost shrank behind them, already broadcasting distress signals. Elena watched the gas giant swallow the station's silhouette, a hollow victory settling in her gut. One down, but the list was long and the galaxy was waking up. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the shuttle shuddered through the asteroid field's edge. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the bridge in bloody hues. "Evasive pattern Delta," she barked, her voice cutting through the din like a knife. Beside her, Lieutenant Raj Patel hunched over the tactical console, fingers flying across holographic displays. The Zypheron fleet had ambushed them just outside the neutral zone, 3 cruisers sleek and predatory, their plasma lances already charging for a second volley. "Shields at 60%, Raj reported, sweat beading on his forehead. He was the cautious one, always double-checking trajectories, but now his eyes burned with focused fury. "They're locking on. Recommend we slingshot around that rock cluster to break their fire line." Elena nodded sharply, her mind racing through the op. Order 66 wasn't just a signal. It was a cascade. Earth's hidden network of sleeper agents and automated strikes rippling across the galaxy. Her shuttle was the tip of one spear, tasked with infiltrating the Council's outer relay station on Epsilon Prime. If they failed here, the whole chain could unravel. "Do it and hail them, standard frequency. Let's see if these bugs want to talk before we turn their hulls to slag." The comms officer, a wiry ensign named Kira Voss, patched through the transmission. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice stayed steady. "This is UNS Shuttle Vanguard. You're in violation of the armistice. Stand down or face consequences." Static crackled, then a guttural voice responded in broken galactic standard, laced with the Zypheron's chitinous clicks. "Human vermin," your ambassador begged before the blade fell. "Now you join him." Laughter echoed mechanical and cold. Elena's jaw tightened. The ambassador's execution vid had looped endlessly on every Earth feed, his defiant stare as the Council's enforcers struck. "No trial, no mercy. Just a message. Humans were expendable." She leaned forward. Wrong answer. With a flick, she triggered the countermeasures. Decoy drones burst from the shuttle's bays, mimicking their signature as they scattered into the field. The Zypheron ships fired, beams slicing through void and stone alike. One drone vaporized in a brilliant flash, drawing fire. Raj whooped softly. "I got him. 2 lances diverted. We're clear for the slingshot." The shuttle banked hard, engines whining as it whipped around a tumbling boulder the size of a skyscraper. G-forces pressed Elena into her seat, her vision tunneling for a heartbeat. Kira gasped, clutching her station while Raj muttered calculations under his breath. They were a tight crew. Elena the bold tactician, Raj the steady planner, Kira the quick adapter who'd jury-rigged half their stealth tech from scrap. No room for heroes, just survival and payback. As they emerged on the far side, Elena's console lit up with incoming data bursts. The first wave of Order 66 was live. Automated mines seeding the trade lanes, sleeper cells activating on a dozen worlds. But here, in this forsaken fringe, it was personal. "Target their lead cruiser," she ordered. Torpedo spread pattern echo. Raj hesitated a fraction. Always the cautious voice. "Ma'am, that's their command ship. If we miss, we won't." Elena's eyes locked on the viewport where the Zypheron vessel loomed, its carapace gleaming under distant stars. She thought of the ambassador's last words broadcast galaxy-wide. "Earth remembers." The torpedoes launched with a muffled thump, streaking toward their prey. The lead cruiser twisted, evading 2, but the third struck true. An explosion bloomed, venting atmosphere and crew into the black. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short and fierce. But the other 2 ships closed in, undeterred. They're adapting, Kira warned, her voice pitching up. Shifting to boarding pods. Elena's mind whirred. The plan had contingencies, but this was faster than intel suggested. Raj, reroute power to forward arrays. Kira, prep the EMP burst, we're going to blind them. It was a gamble. The burst would fry their own sensors for minutes, leaving them blind in the field. But humans didn't win by playing safe. As the pods detached, hurtling toward them like angry hornets, Elena felt the weight of it all. The galaxy had struck first, executing not just a man but humanity's fragile trust. Order 66 was Earth's answer. Not conquest, but a reckoning. Precise, unrelenting. Hold steady, she said, more to herself than the crew. We've got this. The shuttle dove into the denser asteroids, pods trailing. Collision alerts screamed. Raj plotted a desperate weave, threading needles of rock no sane pilot would attempt. One pod grazed their hull, shearing off a sensor array in a shower of sparks. Kira triggered the EMP, a silent pulse rippling outward. The pursuing ships faltered, their systems glitching, pods veering wildly. For a moment, silence reigned on the bridge, broken only by the hum of strained engines. Sensors rebooting in 30, Raj announced, exhaling. Elena allowed herself a grim smile. The relay station was close now, its silhouette winking through the debris, one step closer to hitting the Council where it hurt. But as the stars stabilized on their screens, a new ping echoed. Reinforcements closing fast. The fight was far from over. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the bridge shuddered under another volley of plasma fire. Alarms blared, red lights strobing across the faces of her crew. Evasive maneuvers, helm! Get us behind that asteroid cluster, she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Lieutenant Rao, her tactical officer, wiped sweat from his brow and punched coordinates into his console. They're locking on again, Captain. That Krell destroyer has our number. Shields at 40%. The ship, the UNS Endurance, lurched as thrusters fired, swinging them toward the jagged rocks floating in the void. Elena leaned forward, eyes narrowed at the holographic display. The Galactic Council's enforcers had ambushed them in the neutral zone, right after the ambassador's execution broadcast rippled across every comm channel. Earth's response, Order 66, had been swift. A cascade of encrypted signals activating sleeper protocols in human vessels scattered across the stars. No more diplomacy, no more begging, just payback. Status on the drone swarm? She asked, glancing at Ensign Lila Chen, the young engineer whose fingers flew over her panel. Launching now, Chen replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Tiny ports along the Endurance's hull irised open, spewing a cloud of micro-drones like angry hornets. They weren't weapons, not directly. Earth's ingenuity lay in adaptation, not brute force. These were hackers' burrowers designed to infiltrate enemy systems mid-battle. The Krell ship loomed larger on the display, its scaled hull bristling with turrets. A guttural transmission crackled over the open channel. Human vessel, stand down. The Council's justice is final. Your ambassador's treason demanded his end. Elena snorted, muting the comm. Treason? He was negotiating peace while they sharpened their knives. She turned to Rao. Target their sensor arrays with the disruptors. Buy the drones time. Rao nodded, his cautious nature yielding to the fire in her eyes. Firing. Bursts of electromagnetic pulses lanced out, scrambling the destroyer's targeting. For a moment, the barrage ceased, and the Endurance slipped into the asteroid field's shadow. Chen's console pinged, drones breaching their firewalls. I've got a backdoor into their nav systems, rerouting their power grid now. The bridge fell quiet, save for the hum of strained engines. Elena watched the display, heart pounding. If this worked, they'd turn the Krell's own weapons against them. If not, the Endurance would be space debris, another tally in the Council's ledger. A new alert flashed, reinforcements incoming. 2 more Council frigates warping in from the edge of the system. Rao cursed under his breath. Captain, we can't take 3. Elena's mind raced. Order 66 wasn't just about fighting back. It was about surviving to fight smarter. Chen, can you chain the hack? Jump it to the incoming ships via their formation link? Chen hesitated, then grinned fiercely. Risky, but yeah. Giving it everything. Her hands blurred, code streaming across her screen in a digital frenzy. The Krell destroyer fired blindly. A lucky shot grazing an asteroid and sending debris pinging off the Endurance's hull. Elena braced as the ship rocked. Hold course! Seconds stretched into eternity. Then Chen whooped. Got it! Their guns are swinging toward their own fleet. On the display, the destroyer unleashed a full broadside, plasma tearing into the lead frigate. Explosions bloomed like flowers in the void, the second ship veering wildly to evade. Chaos erupted over the comms, alien voices shouting in confusion. Elena allowed herself a tight smile. All hands prepare for pursuit. We're not done here. But as the Endurance powered up for the kill, a subtle warning light flickered on her console. A ghost signal from Earth Command. The real war was just igniting, and not every human ship had answered the call cleanly. Some loyalties ran deeper than orders. Rao caught her eye, his wit surfacing in the tension. Think the galaxy's ready for us to stop playing nice? They're about to find out, Elena said, her brave resolve steeling the crew as they surged forward into the fray. The cost was already mounting. Lives, alliances shattered. But in the stars' cold silence, humanity's grit burned brighter than any council decree. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the console as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, her knuckles white against the worn plasteel. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, painting the cockpit in red flashes that danced across her face. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Hale muttered calculations under his breath, his fingers flying over a holographic display that flickered like a dying star. We're clear of the primary wreckage, he said, voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. But if that council frigate spots us, we're vapor. In the back, Lieutenant Kira Voss checked her rifle for the third time, her cautious eyes scanning the readouts on her wrist gauntlet. She was the glue, the one who kept them grounded, always double-checking seals, ration packs, escape vectors. Scans show patrols thinning out near the nebula's edge, she reported, sliding forward to peer over Elena's shoulder. We push now, or we wait for reinforcements that might never come. Elena nodded, her brave resolve a mask over the knot in her gut. The ambassador's execution had ignited this fire. Earth's fleets mobilizing in shadows, striking back with precision that the galaxy's bloated councils never saw coming. Order 66 wasn't just a signal. It was a reckoning purging corrupt outposts one by one. Their shuttle carried the next payload, a virus that would cripple the council's comms relay on Epsilon Prime. Fail here, and the whole op unraveled, leaving human colonies exposed to retaliation. The nebula loomed ahead, a swirling veil of gas and dust that hid their approach like a shroud. Elena punched the thrusters, the ship groaning as it accelerated into the haze. Purple tendrils whipped past the viewport, distorting sensors into ghostly shapes. Marcus leaned in, adjusting the stealth field generator. Field's holding at 80%. Any spikes and we'll light up like a supernova. A sudden jolt rocked them. Debris collision or worse. Kira braced against the bulkhead, her wit surfacing in the tension. If that's a welcoming committee, tell them we're fresh out of olive branches. But her joke fell flat as the proximity alert screamed. On the screen, a shadow detached from the nebula, a scout drone, its sensors sweeping lazily. Elena's mind raced. The early plan, slip in silent, deploy the virus via docking tube, had backfired on the last run when a similar drone had forced an abort. No time for subtlety now. Marcus, reroute power to the EMP burst. Kira, prep the breach charges. We're going loud. He hesitated, his cautious nature flaring. That'll fry our own systems for a minute. We could lose nav. Do it, Elena snapped, her voice cutting through the din. Trust was their currency out here, earned in the crucible of lost ships and silent memorials. Marcus complied, fingers trembling slightly as he initiated the sequence. The EMP erupted in a silent wave, invisible but devastating. The drone sputtered, its lights winking out like a snuffed candle, tumbling inert into the nebula's embrace. But the cost hit immediately. Consoles dimmed, the shuttle drifting on momentum alone. Elena wrestled manual controls, muscles straining against the unresponsive yoke. Kira, eyes on the relay station. Distance? 2 clicks and closing, Kira replied, her rifle slung over her shoulder as she patched into the auxiliary sensors. The station emerged from the gas clouds, a hulking orb bristling with antennae, guarded by automated turrets that hadn't yet stirred. Marcus worked frantically, coaxing the systems back online. Shields at half. Virus payload intact, but if they ping us... He trailed off, the unspoken risk hanging heavy. Capture meant interrogation, and Earth's secrets spilling like blood. Elena steered them toward a jagged asteroid for cover, the shuttle scraping hull against rock in a shower of sparks. One turret swiveled, locking on. Kira fired from the open hatch, her shot precise. A grappling line that snagged the turret's base, yanking it offline with a metallic screech. Got it. But more inbound. The team moved as one, Elena docking hard against the station's underbelly while Marcus uploaded the virus through a jury-rigged port. Code streamed across his display, infiltrating the relay's core. Alarms wailed inside the station now, alien klaxons echoing through the vents. A security drone burst from a nearby hatch, lasers lancing out. Kira rolled, returning fire, her shots chipping away at its armor. Elena covered Marcus, her sidearm barking in the confined space. Hurry, it's adapting. Done. Marcus yelled, the upload complete. The station shuddered, lights flickering as the virus took hold, broadcasting chaos across council frequencies. False orders, jammed signals, the first domino in Earth's grand purge. They detached just as reinforcements arrived, the nebula swallowing their escape. But as the shuttle limped away, Elena glanced back at the station, now a darkening silhouette. The cost lingered. Marcus's generator was slagged, repairs meaning weeks in hiding. And Kira nursed a graze on her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. Victory, but Pyrrhic. The galaxy was waking to humanity's wrath, and the next strike would demand even more. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest as the shuttle shuddered through the asteroid field's edge, the void outside a glittering minefield of rock and ice. Her team, 3 engineers and a xenobiologist named Tariq, huddled in the dim cabin, faces lit by the flickering holoscreen displaying the council outpost's schematics. Locking coordinates, she muttered, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. The mission was simple on paper. Infiltrate, plant the disruptor, slip out before the alarms wailed. But nothing was simple since the execution broadcast looped across every comm channel, the ambassador's blood staining the council floor in high def. Tariq leaned forward, his dark eyes scanning the readout. Sensors show minimal patrols, 2 drones, maybe a sentry bot. But if that backdoor code from the defector holds... He trailed off, fingers dancing over his tablet. Elena nodded, remembering the defector's frantic message. A low-level aide who'd seen the ambassador dragged away, pleading for mercy that never came. Earth's response had been swift. Order 66 igniting sleeper cells and black ops across the sector. But this outpost was key. A relay hub that could cripple the Council's fleet coordination for weeks. The shuttle banked hard, engines whining as they dodged a tumbling boulder the size of a frigate. Brace, Elena barked, and the team complied, mag boots clamping to the deck. Impact alerts blared, but they skimmed clean, emerging into the shadow of the outpost's massive docking arm. It loomed like a skeletal claw against the stars, its hull scarred from micrometeorites, lights pulsing in rhythmic security sweeps. Docking in 30, the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Elena unstrapped, checking her suit's seals, 0G ready, EMP shielding intact. The disruptor device, a sleek cylinder no bigger than her forearm, hummed faintly in her pack, its quantum core primed to rewrite the hub's firewalls from the inside. As the clamps engaged with a metallic thud, Tariq shot her a wry grin. You ever think we'd be the ones playing saboteurs? Back in the academy, I figured it'd be desk jobs and diplomacy. Elena snorted, clipping her harness. Diplomacy got a plasma bolt to the skull. This is what grit looks like now. She hit the hatch release and the airlock cycled with a hiss, revealing the outpost's underbelly. A maze of conduits and service hatches crawling with automated welders. They moved like shadows, jetpacks whispering as they navigated the 0G drift toward the access point. The first hitch came at the hatch. Tariq's code inputted clean, but the panel flickered, then locked with a red denial glyph. Damn it, he whispered, sweat beading on his brow despite the suit's chill. Elena pulled her multi-tool, a compact laser cutter humming to life. Manual override. Keep watch. Sparks flew in the vacuum, silent but bright as she sliced through the locking mechanism. Alarm stayed quiet, but her pulse thrummed. One wrong move and the whole arm would swarm with security drones. Inside, the corridors were a sterile labyrinth of alloy and glowing conduits, the air thick with the hum of servers processing fleet movements. They ghosted past a maintenance drone, its sensors blind to their stealth fields, and reached the core chamber. Elena knelt by the central nexus, a towering pillar of data nodes pulsing like a heartbeat. Planting now, she said, slotting the disruptor into a hidden port. It interfaced with a soft chime, tendrils of code burrowing deep. Tariq monitored from his tablet. Uploading the worm. It'll masquerade as a routine diagnostic, then fry the relays. Council won't know until their ships start ghosting each other. But as the upload hit 70%, a proximity alert pinged softly in their helmets. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, heavy, deliberate. Not a drone. Elena yanked the disruptor free, half-installed, and they ducked behind a server bank. A council enforcer rounded the corner, its scaled hide gleaming under the lights, forearms cradling a plasma rifle. Kazari, one of the ambassador's executioner's species, tall, reptilian, with eyes like polished obsidian. It paused, nostrils flaring, then barked into its comm. Intruder alert. Sector 7 compromised. Tension coiled like a spring. Elena signaled the team. Abort fallback. But Tariq's eyes widened at his screen. The upload stuck at 82. If we pull now, it'll leave a trace. Alert every outpost in the grid. The Kazari advanced, rifle sweeping. Elena's hand hovered over her sidearm. A compact railgun loaded with suppressed rounds. Shooting meant noise, meant reinforcements, but running meant the mission failed, and Order 66's momentum shattered. Cover me, she whispered, igniting her cutter again. Tariq nodded, priming a flash grenade, non-lethal but it'd buy seconds. The Kazari lunged as the grenade popped, blinding light filling the chamber. Elena dove for the nexus, slamming the disruptor home. Code surged, the pillars shuddering as firewalls crumbled. Alarms finally wailed, red lights strobing. The team bolted. Enforcers' shots sizzling past, melting bulkhead inches from Elena's heel. They burst into the docking arm, jets firing in frantic bursts. The shuttle's ramp yawned open, pilot revving engines. But as they piled in, Elena glanced back. The outpost's lights flickered erratically, the disruptor taking hold. Yet the Zari enforcer clung to the hull, comm crackling with calls for backup. They're locking the field, the pilot yelled. We jump now or get tractor-beamed. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her Command H-Air as the USS Vanguard shuddered through another hyperspace ripple. The bridge lights flickered, casting long shadows over the faces of her crew, tense, unyielding. Status, Lieutenant Rao, she barked, her voice cutting through the hum of strained engines. Rao's fingers flew across his console, sweat beading on his forehead. Shields at 62%, ma'am. The Krell interceptors are matching our vector. 3 minutes to visual range. They've got us painted. Elena nodded sharply, her mind racing through contingencies. The galaxy's response to Earth's purge had been swift and savage. The Council's remnants had rallied every fringe fleet they could muster. Order 66 wasn't just a signal, it was a declaration. And now the Vanguard was the tip of the spear in Sector 7, hunting down the last of the Orion Armada's supply lines. But supply lines meant ambushes, and this one felt too neat. Helm, evasive pattern Delta 9. Bring us about to bearing 270 Mark 15. Weapons, lock quantum torpedoes on the lead interceptor. Her orders snapped out like whip cracks, the crew responding with the precision of long drills. Ensign Kira, the young navigator from New Mumbai, glanced up with wide eyes but didn't falter, her hands steady on the controls. The ship lurched as it dropped from hyperspace, stars blooming into sharp pinpricks against the void. There they were, 3 angular Krell fighters, sleek and predatory, their plasma vents glowing like angry eyes. They broke formation instantly, diving toward the Vanguard with coordinated fury. Fire, Elena commanded. Twin torpedoes streaked from the forward tubes, their warheads igniting in brilliant azure flares. The lead interceptor twisted, but too slow. One torpedo grazed its flank, shearing off a wing and a spray of molten debris. The other 2 ships unleashed a barrage of ion pulses, slamming into the Vanguard's shields with thunderous impacts that rattled the deck plates. Alarms wailed, shields dropping to 48%, Rao reported, his voice tight. They're vectoring for a pincer. Compensate, Elena interrupted, leaning forward. She could feel the weight of it all. The ambassador's execution that had lit the fuse, the cascade of executions across 100 worlds that followed. Earth hadn't asked for this war, but they'd damn well finish it. Reroute auxiliary power to forward arrays. Kira, get us behind that debris field. The ensign nodded, her jaw set. The Vanguard banked hard, engines whining as it plunged toward the wreckage of the crippled interceptor. Shrapnel pinged off the hull like hail on a tin roof. In the chaos, Elena spotted the opening, a narrow channel through the floating scrap, just wide enough. Through there, now. The ship squeezed into the gap, hull groaning under the strain. The pursuing fighters hesitated, their sensors blinded by the metallic storm. One miscalculated, clipping a jagged chunk and spinning wildly into the void. Target acquired, the weapons officer called. Elena allowed herself a grim smile as the remaining interceptor bloomed into a fireball, its debris joining the graveyard. But victory was fleeting. Sensors lit up again, bigger signatures emerging from the asteroid belt ahead. Not interceptors, a cruiser, Krell Heavy Assault class, its cannons already charging. "Captain," Rao said, urgency edging his tone. "That's the Varric's fist. If they call for reinforcements—" "They won't," Elena replied, her eyes narrowing on the tactical display. The Varric's fist was a beast, but beasts had weak spots. Earth's ingenuity had mapped them all. Overcharged plasma cores, vulnerable to EMP bursts if you could get close. "Kira, plot an intercept course. Weapons, prep the disruptor pulse. We're ending this run here." The crew moved as one, a symphony of grit and focus. The Vanguard surged forward, closing the gap under a hail of warning shots that scorched the void around them. Elena's heart pounded, but her voice remained steel. "For Earth," she murmured, more to herself than anyone. The cruiser loomed larger, its broadsides erupting in a storm of fire. The Vanguard danced through it, shields flaring, until they were point blank. "Pulse away!" An invisible wave rippled from the bow, slamming into the Varric's fist. Lights across its hull stuttered, weapons silencing as systems fried. But the cruiser didn't stop. It rammed forward, intent on crushing them. "Brace!" Elena shouted. Collision alarms screamed as the two ships grazed, metal shrieking against metal. The Vanguard spun away, trailing sparks, but the cruiser listed, adrift and dark. "Core breach confirmed," Rao announced, exhaling. "She's done." Elena sank back, the adrenaline ebbing into weary resolve. They'd severed another supply line, but the cost was etched in the bridge's scars, flickering panels, a faint, acrid smell. And somewhere out there more fists waited to strike. The war's shadow lengthened, but so did Earth's reach. They pressed on, into the gathering storm. Captain Reyes gripped the console edge as the frigate shuddered, alarms blaring in the dim red light of the bridge. "Status!" she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Lieutenant Chen swiped at his flickering holographic display, sweat beading on his forehead. "Shields at 30%, ma'am. That last plasma burst from the Krell destroyer clipped us bad. Engineering reports hull breaches on decks 4 and 5. Reyes nodded sharply, her mind racing through contingencies. The Krell had ambushed their convoy in the nebula's edge, their ships emerging like ghosts from the ionized clouds. Earth's retaliation fleet was spread thin across the galaxy after Order 66, the signal that unleashed hell on every council world. But here, in this forgotten arm, they were on their own. No backup, just the battered UNS Vanguard and its crew of 200 souls. "Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7, get us into that asteroid field," she ordered, pointing at the sensor bloom ahead. Ensign Patel's fingers flew over the controls, the ship lurching as thrusters fired in staccato bursts. Rocks the size of city blocks tumbled in the void, remnants of some ancient cataclysm, now their only shield. The Krell destroyer loomed on the main view screen, its jagged hull pulsing with energy weapons. 3 of them now, coordinating like a pack of predators. Reyes had faced worse in the border skirmishes, but this felt personal. The Council's execution of Ambassador Hale still burned in every human's gut. Order 66 wasn't just payback, it was survival. "Incoming torpedoes!" Chen shouted. The bridge, lights flickered, gravity compensators whining as the Vanguard dove. Explosions bloomed silently outside, debris pinging off the hull like hail. Reyes slammed her fist on the comm panel. "Gunnery, fire all forward lances. Target their weapon ports, make it hurt." She turned to Chen. "Options for the breach?" He hesitated, eyes darting. "We can seal it with emergency foam, but it'll take time and casualties, maybe 20 in those sections." "Do it," she said, the word heavy. Lives lost, but hesitation meant more. The crew trusted her caution, her unyielding drive to bring them home. No speeches, just action. The Vanguard twisted into the asteroid's engines straining. A Krell shot grazed a boulder, shattering it into a spray of fragments that peppered the destroyer's shields. Reyes allowed a grim smile. Humans didn't have the aliens' fancy energy weaves, but they knew how to improvise. "Captain, they're flanking us," Patel warned, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Young but sharp, always the one to spot the angles. Reyes leaned over the nav chart, tracing a path with her finger. "Use the debris wake. Slingshot us around that big one, then reverse thrust. Catch them off guard." As the maneuver executed, the ship groaned under the G-forces. Chen whooped softly when a lance hit true, punching through a Krell port and venting atmosphere. One destroyer listed, trailing plasma. But the other two closed in, relentless. A torpedo slipped through, slamming into the engineering bay. The deck bucked, throwing Reyes against her chair. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and a console erupted in flames. "Fire suppression," she yelled, scrambling up. Chen was already at it, foam canister hissing. Through the smoke, she saw Patel clutching her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. "Hold on," Reyes said, ripping a med patch from the wall and slapping it on. "We're not done yet." Sensors screamed, another salvo incoming. Reyes straightened, eyes locked on the view screen. The nebula's glow framed the enemy ships, turning the battle into a deadly dance. They had the grit. Now they needed the edge. "Engineering. Reroute auxiliary power to forward shields," she commanded over the intercom. A voice crackled back, strained but affirmative. Mac, the chief engineer, stubborn as they came, but he always delivered. The torpedoes streaked closer. Patel punched the evasion, weaving through a narrow gap in the rocks. One missile detonated harmlessly against an asteroid. The other. Proximity alone rocked the Vanguard, systems browning out. In the momentary blackout, Reyes whispered a curse. Lights flickered back, revealing the Krell closing for the kill. But then, a new blip on sensors. Reinforcements? No, just a rogue asteroid tumbling their way, massive and unyielding. "Helm, adjust course 0.5, let it pass close," Reyes said, her voice calm. The crew exchanged glances, crazy, but it was her call. The rock barreled between them and the lead Krell, its gravity well yanking the alien ship off course. In that split second, the Vanguard's guns roared, lances searing into exposed hull. The destroyer erupted in a silent fireball, debris scattering like confetti. The remaining Krell hesitated, then peeled away into the nebula. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short-lived. Chen slumped, checking readouts. "We held, ma'am, but drives are at 50%, and those breaches." Reyes nodded, the weight settling in. Victory, but Pyrrhic. Hale's death had sparked this war, and every skirmish carved deeper into Earth's resolve. They limped toward the rally point, the galaxy's stars mocking their fragility. Yet here they were, alive, adapting, human as ever. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair as the bridge shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. Alarms blared, red lights strobing across the faces of her crew like erratic heartbeats. "Evasive pattern Delta 7, she barked, her voice cutting through the din. The USS Vanguard lurched, inertial dampeners whining in protest as they dodged a salvo from the pursuing Krell destroyer. Lieutenant Raj Patel, her tactical officer, wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over the console. "Shields at 40%, Captain. That last hit breached the outer hull on Deck 4. The Vanguard banked hard, engines whining as it plunged toward the wreckage of the crippled interceptor. Shrapnel pinged off the hull like hail on a tin roof. In the chaos, Elena spotted the opening, a narrow channel through the floating scrap, just wide enough. "Through there, now!" The ship squeezed into the gap, hull groaning under the strain. The pursuing fighters hesitated, their sensors blinded by the metallic storm. One miscalculated, clipping a jagged chunk and spinning wildly into the void. "Target acquired," the weapons officer called. Elena allowed herself a grim smile as the remaining interceptor bloomed into a fireball, its debris joining the graveyard. But victory was fleeting. Sensors lit up again, bigger signatures emerging from the asteroid belt ahead. Not interceptors, a cruiser, Krell Heavy Assault class, its cannons already charging. "Captain," Rao said, urgency edging his tone. "That's the Varric's fist. If they call for reinforcements—" "They won't," Elena replied, her eyes narrowing on the tactical display. The Varric's fist was a beast, but beasts had weak spots. Earth's ingenuity had mapped them all. Overcharged plasma cores, vulnerable to EMP bursts if you could get close. "Kira, plot an intercept course. Weapons, prep the disruptor pulse. We're ending this run here." The crew moved as one, a symphony of grit and focus. The Vanguard surged forward, closing the gap under a hail of warning shots that scorched the void around them. Elena's heart pounded, but her voice remained steel. "For Earth," she murmured, more to herself than anyone. The cruiser loomed larger, its broadsides erupting in a storm of fire. The Vanguard danced through it, shields flaring, until they were point blank. "Pulse away!" An invisible wave rippled from the bow, slamming into the Varric's fist. Lights across its hull stuttered, weapons silencing as systems fried. But the cruiser didn't stop. It rammed forward, intent on crushing them. "Brace!" Elena shouted. Collision alarms screamed as the two ships grazed, metal shrieking against metal. The Vanguard spun away, trailing sparks, but the cruiser listed, adrift and dark. "Core breach confirmed," Rao announced, exhaling. "She's done." Elena sank back, the adrenaline ebbing into weary resolve. They'd severed another supply line, but the cost was etched in the bridge's scars, flickering panels, a faint, acrid smell. And somewhere out there more fists waited to strike. The war's shadow lengthened, but so did Earth's reach. They pressed on, into the gathering storm. Captain Reyes gripped the console edge as the frigate shuddered, alarms blaring in the dim red light of the bridge. "Status!" she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Lieutenant Chen swiped at his flickering holographic display, sweat beading on his forehead. "Shields at 30%, ma'am. That last plasma burst from the Krell destroyer clipped us bad. Engineering reports hull breaches on decks 4 and 5. Reyes nodded sharply, her mind racing through contingencies. The Krell had ambushed their convoy in the nebula's edge, their ships emerging like ghosts from the ionized clouds. Earth's retaliation fleet was spread thin across the galaxy after Order 66, the signal that unleashed hell on every council world. But here, in this forgotten arm, they were on their own. No backup, just the battered UNS Vanguard and its crew of 200 souls. "Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7, get us into that asteroid field," she ordered, pointing at the sensor bloom ahead. Ensign Patel's fingers flew over the controls, the ship lurching as thrusters fired in staccato bursts. Rocks the size of city blocks tumbled in the void, remnants of some ancient cataclysm, now their only shield. The Krell destroyer loomed on the main view screen, its jagged hull pulsing with energy weapons. 3 of them now, coordinating like a pack of predators. Reyes had faced worse in the border skirmishes, but this felt personal. The Council's execution of Ambassador Hale still burned in every human's gut. Order 66 wasn't just payback, it was survival. "Incoming torpedoes!" Chen shouted. The bridge, lights flickered, gravity compensators whining as the Vanguard dove. Explosions bloomed silently outside, debris pinging off the hull like hail. Reyes slammed her fist on the comm panel. "Gunnery, fire all forward lances. Target their weapon ports, make it hurt." She turned to Chen. "Options for the breach?" He hesitated, eyes darting. "We can seal it with emergency foam, but it'll take time and casualties, maybe 20 in those sections." "Do it," she said, the word heavy. Lives lost, but hesitation meant more. The crew trusted her caution, her unyielding drive to bring them home. No speeches, just action. The Vanguard twisted into the asteroid's engines straining. A Krell shot grazed a boulder, shattering it into a spray of fragments that peppered the destroyer's shields. Reyes allowed a grim smile. Humans didn't have the aliens' fancy energy weaves, but they knew how to improvise. "Captain, they're flanking us," Patel warned, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Young but sharp, always the one to spot the angles. Reyes leaned over the nav chart, tracing a path with her finger. "Use the debris wake. Slingshot us around that big one, then reverse thrust. Catch them off guard." As the maneuver executed, the ship groaned under the G-forces. Chen whooped softly when a lance hit true, punching through a Krell port and venting atmosphere. One destroyer listed, trailing plasma. But the other two closed in, relentless. A torpedo slipped through, slamming into the engineering bay. The deck bucked, throwing Reyes against her chair. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and a console erupted in flames. "Fire suppression," she yelled, scrambling up. Chen was already at it, foam canister hissing. Through the smoke, she saw Patel clutching her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. "Hold on," Reyes said, ripping a med patch from the wall and slapping it on. "We're not done yet." Sensors screamed, another salvo incoming. Reyes straightened, eyes locked on the view screen. The nebula's glow framed the enemy ships, turning the battle into a deadly dance. They had the grit. Now they needed the edge. "Engineering. Reroute auxiliary power to forward shields," she commanded over the intercom. A voice crackled back, strained but affirmative. Mac, the chief engineer, stubborn as they came, but he always delivered. The torpedoes streaked closer. Patel punched the evasion, weaving through a narrow gap in the rocks. One missile detonated harmlessly against an asteroid. The other. Proximity alone rocked the Vanguard, systems browning out. In the momentary blackout, Reyes whispered a curse. Lights flickered back, revealing the Krell closing for the kill. But then, a new blip on sensors. Reinforcements? No, just a rogue asteroid tumbling their way, massive and unyielding. "Helm, adjust course 0.5, let it pass close," Reyes said, her voice calm. The crew exchanged glances, crazy, but it was her call. The rock barreled between them and the lead Krell, its gravity well yanking the alien ship off course. In that split second, the Vanguard's guns roared, lances searing into exposed hull. The destroyer erupted in a silent fireball, debris scattering like confetti. The remaining Krell hesitated, then peeled away into the nebula. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short-lived. Chen slumped, checking readouts. "We held, ma'am, but drives are at 50%, and those breaches." Reyes nodded, the weight settling in. Victory, but Pyrrhic. Hale's death had sparked this war, and every skirmish carved deeper into Earth's resolve. They limped toward the rally point, the galaxy's stars mocking their fragility. Yet here they were, alive, adapting, human as ever. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair as the bridge shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. Alarms blared, red lights strobing across the faces of her crew like erratic heartbeats. "Evasive pattern Delta 7, she barked, her voice cutting through the din. The USS Vanguard lurched, inertial dampeners whining in protest as they dodged a salvo from the pursuing Krell destroyer. Lieutenant Raj Patel, her tactical officer, wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over the console. "Shields at 40%, Captain. That last hit breached the outer hull on Deck 4. Casualties reported. Engineers are sealing it now." His tone was steady, but Elena caught the flicker of doubt in his eyes. They'd been running for hours, ever since the signal from Earth. Order 66 executed. No mercy for the Council worlds. But mercy had never been the plan. "Status on the jump drive?" Elena asked, leaning forward. The view screen showed the Krell ship closing in, its jagged hull gleaming like a predator's maw against the nebula's glow. They'd ambushed a Council supply convoy earlier, taking out 3 freighters loaded with antimatter warheads. It was a blow to the enemy's logistics, but now the hunters had become the hunted. Ensign Mira Chen, the young navigator, glanced up from her station. "Jump drive spooling, ma'am. 2 minutes until we're clear of this sector, but the Krell are jamming our subspace relays. Can't call for backup." Elena nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. The galaxy was fracturing. Earth's fleets had struck simultaneously across a dozen systems, crippling the Council's vaunted armada. But isolated ships like theirs bore the brunt of the retaliation. She thought of Ambassador Hale, executed in cold blood on the Council's marble floors. That image fueled her now, turning grief into resolve. Arm the forward torpedo tubes. If they get within range, we make them regret it. The ship groaned as another weapon skimmed their shields, sparks erupting from a nearby panel. Raj cursed under his breath. Incoming hail, Captain. It's the Krell commander, demanding surrender. Elena's lips curled into a grim smile. Surrender? After what they'd done to Hale? Patch it through, but keep it short. And prep the virus payload. We're not dying without a fight. The view screen flickered, resolving into the snarling visage of Commander Varric, his tentacles writhing in agitation. Human vessel, this is your final warning. The Council will not tolerate your barbarism. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Elena met his gaze unflinchingly, her voice laced with steel. Tell your Council that Earth's patience ended with Ambassador Hale's blood on their hands. We're not stopping until every one of your executioners pays. Varric's eyes narrowed, but before he could retort, Raj interrupted. Jump drive ready, engaging in 10 seconds. The Krell commander's image vanished as Elena slammed her fist on the console. Fire torpedoes now! Streaks of light lanced from the Vanguard, slamming into the destroyer's shields. Explosions bloomed like angry flowers in the void. The ship jumped, stars stretching into lines as they hurled into hyperspace. Silence fell on the bridge, broken only by the hum of repairing systems. Elena exhaled, slumping back. Deck 4's breach meant lost crew, irreplaceable in this war. But they'd escaped, and the virus, Earth's digital Trojan horse, would burrow into the Krell networks, sowing chaos from within. Mira turned, her face pale but determined. Where to next, Captain? The fleet's rallying at Epsilon Eridani. Elena stared at the starfield, the weight of Order 66 settling heavier. We hit their command relays first. Make sure the galaxy knows. Earth's not just fighting back. We're ending this. The crew nodded, a quiet fire kindling among them. The cost was mounting, but so was their resolve. Elena Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the bridge vibrating through her bones as the view screen flickered with incoming fire. Red lances streaked past the Vanguard's hull, each one a near miss that sent the deck shuddering. Evasive pattern Delta, she barked, her voice cutting through the alarms like a knife. Marcus Hale, at Tactical, didn't glance up from his console. His fingers danced across the holographs, plotting trajectories with the precision of a surgeon. The Krellian dreadnought loomed ahead, its crystalline armor fracturing under their last barrage but refusing to yield. Elena's mind raced, 3 hours into this skirmish, and the fleet's initial momentum had stalled. The Council's execution of Ambassador Ruiz had ignited this war, but Earth's response, that brutal Order 66 directive, demanded total dominance. No mercy, no negotiations. Yet here they were, bogged down by this single behemoth guarding the hyperlane to the core worlds. Shields at 60%, Marcus reported, his tone dry as ever. If we keep trading blows like this, we'll be scrapped before lunch. He shot her a sidelong look, the wit in his eyes belying the sweat beading on his forehead. Elena ignored the jab. Marcus's caution had saved them more times than she could count, but today it felt like a weight. Helm, bring us in closer. Target their ventral emitters. The Vanguard surged forward, engines flaring blue against the void. Elena watched the dreadnought swell on the screen, its weapon ports glowing like angry eyes. A plasma bolt grazed their starboard side, and sparks erupted from a nearby panel. Crew members scrambled, but no one faltered. Earth's grit ran deep, forged in the fires of isolation and defiance. As they closed the gap, Elena keyed the comms. All ships, converge on my mark. We're punching through. The fleet's icons blinked. In acknowledgement, a swarm of human vessels weaving through the debris field. But doubt gnawed at her. The Krellians had adapted faster than intel suggested, their adaptive shield shrugging off proton torpedoes like rain. If this failed, the hyperlane would remain sealed, stranding half the armada and dooming the push to the Council's heart. Marcus leaned in, voice low. Captain, readings show a weak point in their core matrix. Exotic particles leaking, but it'll take a suicide run to exploit it. His words hung heavy, the unspoken risk clear. One ship, one pilot, straight into the beast's maw. Elena met his gaze, the bridge lights casting sharp shadows on her face. Prep the Falcon shuttle. I'll take it myself. Protests rose from the crew, but she silenced them with a raised hand. This was their war, earned through blood and ingenuity. No lone heroics, but calculated sacrifice, humanity's way. The shuttle detached with a muffled thud, Elena at the controls, the dreadnought filling her viewport like a jagged mountain. Marcus's voice crackled over the link. Godspeed, Elena. Make it messy. She grinned fiercely, fingers tightening on the yoke as she accelerated into the firestorm. Torpedoes from the fleet provided cover, explosions blooming silently in the black. Elena jinked left, dodging a laser sweep, her heart pounding in rhythm with the engine's roar. The weak point shimmered ahead, a hairline fracture in the enemy's underbelly. She armed the payload, a jury-rigged antimatter charge, born of desperate shipyard tweaks back on Mars. Alarms wailed as point defense fire nicked her wing. The IZ shuttle bucked, controls fighting her. But Elena held steady, whispering a curse to the stars. Closer, closer. The fracture yawned like a wound. With a final thrust she plunged in, the world erupting in white-hot fury. The dreadnought convulsed on the view screen back aboard the Vanguard, its core rupturing in a cascade of debris. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Marcus's face remained grim. Shuttle's gone, he said flatly, scanning the wreckage. She did it. The hyperlane opened before them, a swirling vortex beckoning to the core worlds. But victory tasted bittersweet. Elena's loss was a scar that would linger, a reminder that Order 66's triumph came at a price no fleet could outrun. Marcus straightened, assuming command with quiet resolve. All ships advance. For Earth. For her. The armada surged forward, humanity's resolve unbroken, but forever marked. The bridge shuddered under another barrage, red alerts pulsing like a frantic heartbeat. Elena gripped the console, her knuckles white, as the view screen fractured into static bursts. Status on the breach team? She barked, eyes locked on the drifting wreckage of the alien frigate they'd just gutted. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over his makeshift panel. They're pinned, Cap. That council shield generator's holding. Our EMPs bounced right off, lost contact with Jax 30 seconds ago. His voice cracked on the name, but he kept working, rerouting power from life support to the forward cannons. The air grew thicker, recyclers whining in protest. Elena nodded, jaw set. The galaxy's so-called enlightened council had thought executing Ambassador Hale would cow humanity into submission. Instead, Order 66 had unleashed a storm of human fury, fleets forged in secret, tactics born of desperation. But here, at the edge of their core worlds, the cost was mounting. Her ship, the Relentless, carried the weight of billions back home, and failure meant extinction. Options? She asked, scanning the tactical overlay. Debris fields dotted the void, remnants of the initial assault wave. The Council's defenses formed a glittering web, automated drones swarming like angry hornets. Marcus hesitated, then pulled up a schematic. We improvise. That asteroid belt, it's laced with magnetic anomalies. If we slingshot a drone cluster through it, the interference could mask a boarding pod. Risky as hell. Pod might fry on entry. Do it, Elena said without pause. She activated comms. All hands brace for unconventional maneuvers. We're not dying out here, polite. The crew's acknowledgments filtered in, steady voices amid the chaos. Camaraderie forged in the fires of betrayal. The Relentless lurched into motion, engines thrumming as it dove toward the belt. Alarms blared, drones closing fast. Elena steered manually, weaving through tumbling rocks the size of city blocks. One clipped the hull, sparks erupting across the viewport. "Marcus, launch on my mark." He nodded, sweat beading. The pod ejected, a silent arrow vanishing into the magnetic haze. On screen, it reappeared ghost-like, slipping past the shields. "It's through." Breach teams reforming. Jax is alive, patching in now. Relief flickered in Elena's chest, but the battle pressed. Council reinforcements warped in, their sleek vessels unleashing plasma lances. The Relentless fired back, torpedoes blooming into fireballs. A hit rocked them sideways. Bulkheads groaned, and a console exploded in a shower of shards. "Shields at 20%, Marcus yelled. "We can't take another." Elena slammed the evasion thrusters, buying seconds. The boarding pod reached the generator core. Feeds showed Jax and the team cutting through hatches, lasers flashing. But a security drone ambushed them, pinning two against the bulkhead. Jax dove, tackling it with raw force, his suit sparking as he wrestled the machine down. "Come on," Elena muttered, the ship bucking under fire. The galaxy watched this moment. Humanity's gambit against the stars that had slain their voice. Order 66 wasn't vengeance alone. It was survival, etched in blood and ingenuity. The feed crackled, Jax's voice strained but triumphant. "Generators down. Shields failing across the grid." The view screen cleared as the web collapsed, council ships exposed. Elena's lips curved in a grim smile. All batteries fire at will. The Relentless surged forward, cannons roaring into the fray. But as the first enemy hull breached, a new alert pierced the din. Reinforcements from the council's heart world closing fast. The real storm was just beginning. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the USS Vanguard shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. Alarms blared in the dim red light of the bridge, and sparks danced from a ruptured console nearby. Her crew, 30 humans, all volunteers from the remnants of Earth's fleet, moved with grim efficiency, their faces etched with the same unyielding determination that had carried them this far. "Shields at 40%, reported Lieutenant Marco Ruiz, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. He was the cautious one, always double-checking readings, but even he didn't hesitate now. "Incoming torpedoes, 3 minutes out." Elena nodded, her mind racing through the tactical overlay on the main holoscreen. The Galactic Council's armada loomed ahead, a swarm of sleek alien vessels blockading Sol's outer rim. They'd executed Ambassador Hale without trial, branding humanity a rogue species after the skirmish on Epsilon Eridani. Earth's response, Operation Retribution, their version of Order 66, had been swift and merciless. Sleeper agents activated, supply lines severed, key council worlds hit with precision strikes. But this was the endgame, the push to break their blockade and deliver the ultimatum straight to the core worlds. "Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7, Elena ordered, her tone clipped. Ensign Kira Patel, the witty newcomer with a knack for improvisation, flashed a quick grin before her fingers flew across the controls. The Vanguard banked hard, weaving through the debris field of a recently crippled Kragthar destroyer. Human ingenuity had turned junk into weapons. They'd rigged the wreckage with remote detonators, turning the battlefield into a minefield. A direct hit rocked the ship, and Elena tasted blood from biting her lip. "Damage report." "Engineering's holding," came the gruff reply from Chief Harlan Beck over the comms. He was the brave anchor, the man who'd welded bulkheads with his bare hands during the evacuation of Luna Base. "But if we take another like that, we're venting atmosphere." The challenge wasn't just the Council's superior numbers. It was the adaptive shielding on their flagships, tech that rendered human railguns half effective. Elena's early plan, a flanking maneuver using asteroid cover, had backfired when a sensor ghost led them into an ambush. 3 corvettes lost, good people with them. Now stakes were personal. Fail here, and Earth remained isolated, its colonies starving under blockade. Ruiz, target the lead battleship's emitter arrays. Fire all forward batteries on my mark. Elena leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. The Vanguard's engines hummed louder as Patel pushed them to the limit, dodging a lance of energy that scorched the void where they'd been seconds ago. "They're adapting," Ruiz muttered, his caution flaring. "Shields modulating to our frequency. Then we improvise." Elena's voice carried the weight of command, born from years of scraping by in the shadows of alien politics. She keyed the internal comm. "Beck, reroute auxiliary power to the gravitic disruptors. Make it count. A pause, then Harlan's affirmative grunt. On it, Cap, give us 30 seconds. Tension coiled in the air, thick as the ozone from fried circuits. Patel quipped under her breath. 30 seconds in a dogfight? That's an eternity. But her hands didn't falter, plotting a suicide run that skirted the edge of sanity. The torpedoes closed in, red blips on the display. Elena watched, calculating. Mark! Railgun slugs erupted from the Vanguard, silent in the vacuum but devastating in impact. The battleship's shields flickered, emitters overloading under the barrage. Explosions bloomed across the holoscreen as Harlan's disruptors went live, warping the gravity wells around the enemy formation. Council ships bucked like ships in a storm, collisions inevitable. One cruiser crumpled into its neighbor, a chain reaction that lit the stars. But victory came at a cost. The Vanguard's hull groaned, a torpedo glancing off the shields and shearing away a sensor array. Elena felt the deck tilt, heard the first cries from below decks. Status. Breaches sealed, Ruiz reported, but his eyes told the truth. They were limping. As the blockade fractured, Elena allowed herself a breath. The path to the inner system was open, but the Council's reserves were mobilizing. One more push and the galaxy would learn what humans meant by retribution. Yet in the quiet between volleys, she wondered about the worlds they'd burn, and the fragile peace that might rise from the ashes. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of the shuttle's command chair, her knuckles white against the worn leather. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the cabin in bloody hues as the vessel shuddered through the debris field. Shields at 30%, she barked, eyes locked on the holographic display where the Galactic Council's flagship loomed like a dying leviathan, its hull breached and venting plasma. Beside her, Dr. Liam Chen, the xenolinguist who'd barely survived the initial purge, wiped sweat from his brow and typed furiously at his console. They're hailing us, Elena, the survivors. They're begging for terms. She didn't flinch. The weight of Order 66 pressed on her like gravity from a black hole. Earth's declaration of total war, a cascade of strikes that had crippled the Council's fleets in hours. Billions dead, worlds shattered. But humanity's ingenuity had turned the tide. Retrofitted mining drones into swarm killers, civilian hackers cracking alien encryptions. No speeches, no mercy. Just cold, calculated retribution for Ambassador Reyes, executed on live feed for insolence. Elena's team, her, Liam, and the grizzled engineer Marcus Hale in the back, were the cleanup crew, sent to extract any intel from the ruins before the fallout hit. Patch them through, she said, voice steady despite the knot in her gut. The comms crackled and a trembling voice emerged. The Council's interim speaker, a tentacled Vexari named Thalor. Humans, please, the core world surrender. We were wrong. The execution was a mistake, a panic. Elena cut him off with a sharp gesture. Mistake. You broadcast her head on every frequency. Now your empire's in pieces. Liam shot her a wary look, his cautious nature urging restraint, but she waved it away. They'd lost too much. Colonies glassed, families vaporized. This wasn't vengeance. It was survival. Marcus lumbered forward, his toolkit clanking. Shuttles holding, but that debris'll tear us apart if we linger. Got a path through the ventral breach, narrow but doable. His witty edge was gone, replaced by the grim focus of a man who'd jury-rigged the engines mid-battle to dodge a missile volley. Elena nodded, plotting the course. The challenge wasn't the flight. It was what came after. Earth's fleets encircled the system, but the Council's bioweapons lingered in the shadows. A final spite that could poison atmospheres for generations. As the shuttle banked hard, weaving through twisted metal spires that once formed the flagship's grand halls, Liam deciphered the incoming data streams. They're uploading everything, codes, alliances, the works. But there's a trap, a self-destruct sequence tied to their central AI. If we dock, it could chain react and take out half the fleet. Tension coiled in Elena's chest, the air thick with the scent of ozone and fear. Her plan to board and seize the bridge felt like a fool's errand now, backfiring just as their early assaults had. Overconfidence leading to ambushes that cost good pilots. Adapt, she muttered, echoing the grit that defined humanity's fight. Marcus, reroute power to the grapples. We'll snag the data core remotely, no docking. He grunted approval, fingers flying over panels scarred from plasma burns. The shuttle lurched, engines whining as they closed in. Outside, the striking image of the flagship's core glowed through fractured armor, a pulsing heart ready to explode. Elena's mind raced. One wrong move and they'd join the ghosts. Got it, Marcus announced, sweat beading on his forehead. The grapples fired with a thunderous snap, latching onto the exposed core. Sparks flew as they reeled it in, the shuttle bucking against the pull. Liam isolated the AI's failsafe, his witty quip slipping out under pressure. Like pulling teeth from a kraken. Messy, but it'll do. The core thudded into the bay, sealing with a hiss. Alarms quieted as Elena punched in the retreat vector. Thalor's voice pleaded again, but she muted it. Surrender accepted, but trust? That was shattered like the stars around them. As they broke free, the flagship detonated in a silent bloom of fire, the shockwave rattling their hull. Earth would rebuild, alliances forged in fire's wake, but the cost lingered. Orphaned worlds, scarred psyches, a galaxy forever wary of the quiet humans who'd turned the tide. Elena leaned back, exhaling. They'd won, but victory tasted like ash.